The first goodbye note was supposed to be the last. The small piece of paper lay folded neatly on a cracked blue plastic bus seat, trembling as the old vehicle rattled through the early morning fog. Most people would never have noticed it, just another scrap tossed aside by careless hands. But when the conductor reached down to clean the seat, he hesitated. 3 words were written in careful ink. "I won't be here." No name, no date, just silence. By noon, 3 more notes were found. 1 tucked beneath a café sugar jar. 1 pressed inside a library textbook. 1 slipped beneath a hospital waiting room chair. Each one carried the same handwriting. Each one contained a single sentence: "Goodbye. Thank you for the kindness. Please remember me." The city whispered about it before the police ever noticed. No one knew the girl who was writing the notes, only that somewhere, someone was slowly preparing to disappear. Lena Hart was invisible long before she decided to leave. She lived in a cramped upstairs apartment smelling faintly of dust and old tea bags. No one knocked on her door. No one waited for her calls. Her mailbox gathered bills and grocery coupons, but never letters. At 23 years old, Lena worked the late shift at a small print shop. Customers were polite but distant. Coworkers nodded to her presence but never lingered long enough to know her. She didn't blame anyone. She had mastered the art of being unnoticeable, walking quietly, speaking softly, smiling briefly so no one would ask too many questions. But loneliness has a voice even when you bury it deep. At night, Lena would sit by her window, watching yellow streetlights tremble against the pavement, wondering whether she truly mattered to anyone or whether the world would breathe exactly the same if she vanished. Eventually, curiosity turned into certainty. She began writing goodbye notes. The first note was written after Lena left work and found her bus seat wet from rain dripping through a broken roof vent. She stood for 40 minutes rather than sit, staring at the empty reflection in the window, her face layered with passing lights. That night she wrote, "I won't be here." She didn't know why. It felt lighter once the words existed. The next morning, instead of throwing the note away, she left it behind, not to be found, just to be seen. The truth was simple. She wasn't suicidal. She wasn't seeking death. She was seeking acknowledgement. She wanted proof that her existence meant something to someone, somewhere, anywhere, so she wrote more notes. Every day, she placed them in places where strangers lingered: benches, cafés, hospitals, libraries. She left messages that were honest but incomplete, written to stir emotion but reveal nothing about the writer. Her plan was quiet and careful. If the notes were found and ignored, she would quietly leave town. If even one person cared enough to ask about them, she might stay. The 5th note didn't go unnoticed. Jonah Miles found it jammed into the spine of a history textbook at the city library. "Please remember me." Jonah was a freelance journalist with a nose for stories hiding in plain sight. Something about the message bothered him, not dramatic enough to be fake, not desperate enough to scream attention. Seeker, it felt. Sincere, he started searching. Within a week, Jonah collected 8 notes, all written in the same tidy cursive, all dropped near quiet places where people sat alone. He ran an article titled, "The Mysterious Goodbye Notes Across the City." The city buzzed. Local radio hosts speculated. TikTok sleuths searched for clues. Some called it art. Others said it was a cry for help. The police dismissed it as harmless, but Jonah felt something else entirely. Someone was trying to be remembered before disappearing. When Lena read the article online, panic struck her chest. She never intended an audience. Fame was loud. She was trying to be silent. She stopped writing notes for a while, keeping her head down, praying the whispers would fade. But something unexpected happened. Handwritten replies began appearing. People started leaving notes beside the goodbye messages. "You matter, stay. Whoever you are, we noticed." Lena stumbled on one reply taped near a cafe window. Her breath hitched. The world had noticed her after all, but fear always arrives alongside hope. If people looked too closely, they might find her, and being found meant explaining herself, opening wounds long sealed. So she resumed writing goodbye notes, but now they sounded different. "Thank you for seeing me." One night, Lena packed a small suitcase. She decided this would be the end of her city chapter. She left a final note on the bus seat where the story began. "This is my last goodbye." She bought a late night train ticket to nowhere specific, just far enough that no one would follow. But Jonah Miles followed the trail fast. A cafe owner recognized the handwriting from the article. A librarian reported seeing a young woman matching the descriptions Jonah had collected. Slim build, vintage coat, always alone. Jonah felt sick. This wasn't art. This was exhaustion. He posted a public message to the writer of the goodbye notes. Please don't disappear. Let the city say goodbye properly. Lena read the post minutes before leaving her apartment. She cried for the first time in years. Some stranger didn't want her to vanish. They arrived at the platform at the same moment. Lena stood at the train doors clutching her single suitcase. Jonah hesitated when he saw her. She looked too ordinary for a mystery that had moved thousands. But when he spoke, "Are you the one writing the notes?" Her shoulders broke. She nodded. Passengers brushed past them as if the moment wasn't monumental. Jonah offered no judgment. He just said you never had to say goodbye alone. They stood together until the train departed without her on it. Lena agreed to talk, not publicly, not loudly, but through Jonah's gentle storytelling. Her words spilled between breaths. She was raised by an emotionally distant family. Learned to minimize herself early. Learned not to burden anyone with feelings. Built a life of quiet disappearance. The goodbye notes were the first thing she did that connected her to strangers without having to speak aloud. Jonah didn't turn her into a spectacle. He wrote her story anonymously. The girl who thought no one would miss her. Comments flooded in. Thousands of people shared how they too felt invisible. Her solitude was not unique. It was universal. Lena stayed. She started therapy. She joined a writing circle. She stopped writing goodbye notes and started writing letters to herself. Letters that said, "I deserve to be here. I don't need to disappear to matter." Sometimes strangers recognized her from vague descriptions in the article. They smiled but respected her privacy. People would say, "I read your story. It helped me." For the first time in her life, her presence felt heavier than absence. Years later, Lena returned to the old bus route. She sat in the same seat where her first goodbye had trembled on cheap paper. This time she placed a different note, "I stayed." She watched a tired woman board the bus, read the sentence, and smile softly. Lena realized something. We don't need to make ourselves vanish to be remembered. Sometimes our presence alone becomes the message someone else needs to survive. Lena no longer writes goodbye notes, but she carries one folded in her wallet, never to be placed. It says, "Thank you for finding me before I disappeared." The girl who wrote goodbye notes never left. She just learned how to stay.